meditating for about half an hour, so I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes. So, save your knees for the meditation. Every time you come in here, always save your knees for the meditation. That is a sort of meditation rule. Okay, so those of you who don't know me, my name is Maitreyabandhu. So I'm doing a series of meditation toolkits, is what we call them, which just basically means that I'll be teaching in this slot I started yesterday, and I'll be teaching every lunchtime till Saturday, exploring, as far as I can, one arc of practice, yeah? So if you can, see if you can come every day. Your lifestyle may not allow that, but come as much as you can. Come every day if you can, or come as often as you can during the week. And of course, you can always just drop in. Hello, come in. Do you want to grab yourself a place? Do you want to? Yeah. Do you want to sit up just whilst I'm talking? That'd be great. Yeah. It's all right. Grab yourself a place. That's fine. Just pause for a moment. So what we're exploring in this toolkit this time, from yesterday till Saturday, is this kind of essential matter of what Buddhist meditation is. And essentially that comes down to samadhi and prajna, and that's what I introduced yesterday. So samadhi is usually translated as energized calm. It means that lovely sense of wholeness. In a way, that's the key thing about samadhi, is you feel completely whole and unified. You're no longer distracted or distractible. You feel very unified with your body. Your emotions are very unified with your thinking. When samadhi goes very deep, you can't tell anymore whether you're thinking or feeling. Body and mind, which so often go off in different directions, don't they, come together. So samadhi is this experience of wholeness. When you experience samadhi, it's lovely. I mean, when you experience it, even the touch of it, I had a touch of it just this morning. It's really lovely. And as soon as you think, I want more of that. Yeah. Trouble is, as soon as you want more of it, it goes. But anyway, never mind. But it's lovely when you touch it. It's really what you kind of want to be feeling all the time, samadhi. It's what you thought you'd be feeling as a grown-up when you were a child. You know, you thought you'd be in this like really grown-up. You'd have a nazi jacket like this, and I hope you like it. A recent purchase. You'd feel really whole and unified, and your emotions would be very positive and uplifted, and you'd be thinking these very profound thoughts. That's what you thought you'd be like when you grew up, and it's a terrible disappointment, isn't it? So samadhi is like that. It's what you really want to be feeling. It's a very sensual experience as well. It's not primarily a heady experience. It includes thought, but it's not primarily that. It's a very, very healthy experience. It feels like your whole mind and body are raised to a new pitch of health that you hadn't thought possible. There are stories of Buddhist monks in India and Tibet and so on, who, I remember reading one who was terribly beaten up, and he'd just go and sit in meditation and get himself in samadhi and kind of be fine. Incredible stories of what samadhi can do. But on the basis of samadhi, from a Buddhist point of view, on the basis of samadhi, you then turn that incredibly unified mind to the great issues of life, such as what is the meaning of life, what am I here for? Again, those questions you might have asked as a child, but if we're not careful, we stop asking. What's the value of being? How do I live given that I'm going to die? All those great questions. You then turn that mind to those great questions, and you gain an insight into those questions because you've got a mind that can gain an insight into those questions. But that's all a bit highfalutin, so I want to just concentrate on samadhi at first. Probably most of this week I'll concentrate on samadhi because that's really what we need to be cultivating first. So yesterday I talked about... Hello, come in. Can you just sit on the step just for a minute until I finish talking, then you can grab yourself a place, yeah? So yesterday I talked about that for most of us, when we sit down to meditate, we're not in samadhi. Probably for most of us, our mind's all over the place. It's like, our mind can be like watching a tumble dryer in the, you just see that, your T-shirts go around in your knickers, and there's a 50p piece rattling back. That's what our mind is like, isn't it? Repetitive, frankly a bit boring, pre-wash kind of mind that just goes round and round and round. And most of the matter of that is thought, except that's too grand a word, but most of the matter of that is this kind of surplus thought, this kind of proliferating, kind of noisy chatter. The Buddhist word for it is prapuncture. And the main point I was making yesterday is you can't think your way out of that. If you try to think your way out of it, you only make it worse. Yeah? So the first practice in any meditation is not to turn prapuncture into a problem, not to get at all irritated with it, because getting irritated with your mind will just make things worse. And the trouble is we can get irritated with ourselves without even noticing we are. We can have a kind of automatic frustration with our own mind, which is making things worse, but we don't notice it because it's automatic. Yeah? So we need to take some pains not to get irritated with our mind. And then we need to practice stepping out of thought, stepping out of prapuncture into the direct sensations of the body. And we need to do that again and again and again. Yeah? Not only in meditation, but outside of meditation. So that's what I was talking about yesterday. Today I want to talk about these 5 hindrances. The Buddhist word is niranavas, which means coverings, interestingly, which I think is a much better way of thinking about it than hindrances. Coverings, so they're things that cover over your mind. So what that metaphor tells you is that the mind has got incredible depth. In fact, one of the things that you're trying to discover by coming to the Buddhist Center is that your mind, which means your life, has got much more depth than you could possibly imagine. The great tragedy for us all, I think, especially those of us, all of us who are so privileged, living in such privileged conditions, is that we accept so little. We expect and accept so little of our life because we live very easily just in this thin band of niranavas at the top of our mind, this covering of our mind. And that's usually just repetitive, habitual and automatic and driven. Yeah? But very easily, if you're not careful, you get your cappuccino, your cake, but we're actually just living in this very thin band of consciousness, and what a shame, yeah? Given how much we all have been given, what a shame that that's the best we can make of it, getting a decaf frappuccino. So meditation highlights these 5 niranavas, these 5 coverings. So I'll tell you what they are, and I'll tell you a little bit about them and how to work with them, and then we'll try and, in the meditation, notice them more, and step out of them more. So these 5 hindrances, they're called 5 niranavas, they're taught by the Buddha, so they're 2,500 years old. So one of the things they tell you immediately, the human mind hasn't changed very much, because they're pretty much the 5 things that we experience all the time. So firstly, you'll either be wanting something or not wanting something. Yeah? That's absolutely primary. Somewhere in your experience, if you're not absorbed in samadhi, this beautiful unified state, it's because you're wanting something else than your experience. In other words, you're not settled into and working with your experience. You're kind of hankering after something. Lunch, might be. Or, I'll leave you to think about other things you might hanker after. You could write a list on the way out. Or you'll be not wanting something. Not wanting the fact that your back feels a bit painful in the meditation, slightly wishing you hadn't come to the lunchtime class after all. You'll be not wanting something. You'll be feeling averse to something. Yeah. Now, as soon as we get into either of those states, hankering after something, pushing something away, we stop ourselves entering samadhi. Yeah? Then there's nothing bad about those states, really. It's not. We don't need to worry about them. They're just what we human beings get into, hankering after things, grasping after things, or feeling averse to things. When I say things, it's often people, isn't it, really? Feeling averse to people. Then the other two, so you can see the hindrances are in pairs. So the other pair of hindrances, so that's an emotional pair, grasping, pushing away, absolutely primary to Buddhist thought. The second is an energy pair, so you're either excitable and anxious, you've either got sort of you're either anxious and restless, and anxiety in the modern world is becoming endemic, isn't it? It's becoming a kind of disease that we're all suffering from. So you'll either be anxious and restless, or you'll be slothful and tired, yeah? So either your energy feels too buzzy to work with, or you haven't got any energy and you keep nodding off. And you can tell because you start doing this. Yeah? Yesterday when I was teaching, there was a little symphony of people doing that. Yeah? So if you do that, that means you're not meditating, it means you're falling asleep. Yeah? And the main thing to do, first of all, is just open your eyes. Remember, these hindrances aren't hindrances of meditation. They're what stops our life being truly fulfilled in life. Yeah? Every time we get anxious, every time we get aversive and hateful, every time we hanker, all that we do is experience actually less life. Yeah? Interesting, this idea, this thing of sloth and torpor. The life element I've been noticing about this is passivity. It's not much talked about. I don't hear many people talking about this, but it seems to me of great weight and moment. I meet quite a few people whose the main thing that I notice is their passivity. Not willing to put themselves forward and do things, not able to make decisions. It's that kind of foggy, passive thing that can go on unchallenged for years and years and years. And all it means is your life doesn't deepen. You know, you don't make decisions, you don't step forward, you don't cultivate courage. But I think one of the ways to think of sloth and torpor is, are we passive in relationship to our experience, even our experience of the meditation? Very often we're sort of doing meditation and sort of not. We've not really committed ourselves to it. We've breathed into the LBC, think it sounds nice, but we're not really doing it. We're kind of half somewhere else. And that is what I mean, I think, by passivity. We never really decide to do something. We don't decide even not to do something. We don't decide, actually, I'm not going to bother with meditation, I'm going to do film. We just sort of half do things. Yeah? It gets very habitualized, and I think is much more weighty than we realize. And then, so that's those other two, anxiety and then sloth. And then there's this matter of doubt, which is usually either doubting that meditation is worthwhile or doubting yourself. Yeah? It's supposed to be the deepest hindrance, doubt. It's supposed to underlay all the other hindrances. If you really believed, for instance, that you could gain enlightenment, there'd be no problem with meditation at all, ever. You just wouldn't have any doubt about it, and you just do what you can in the practice. Yeah? So those are the 5 hindrances, the 5 nirvanavas, and they occur all the time in our life. And as soon as you meditate, you'll notice them more, yeah? And that's a good thing. Because when you start to notice them more, you can start to change your life. You can start to change your mind. Otherwise, they run you without you noticing. It's very, very easy for anxiety or sloth, and sometimes sloth is another way of thinking about that element, is that depressive tendency so many of us have nowadays. If we don't own them, they own us. Yeah? They can run our life without us noticing. Anxiety, passivity, wanting, irritability, aversion can just run our life without us noticing. Yeah? So there's 3 things I want to say about these hindrances, and then we'll do a meditation to work with them. The first thing, the most important thing, is to take responsibility for them. They are your hindrances. Usually any hindrance has got someone else on the end of it. So you can think that I'm a really chilled out guy, but life keeps stressing me out. Or you can think, oh, I'm just really a really warm, generous person, but this friend of mine is really getting on my nerves. Or my partner, if only my partner didn't do that, I'd be this lovely person that I know myself to be. I don't know whether you've ever talked to people like this, where it's very difficult to get them to see that these are my mental states. Very easy to say, if X didn't do Y, I wouldn't do Z. Yeah? What we're trying to do is say, I'm in Z. Never mind whether X did it or Y did it, or I'm now experiencing Z, as it were. So this is my hatred, this is my lust, this is my passivity, and it's up to me. I can do nothing about it if I don't want to, but that will have consequences, or I can work with it. Yeah? That's really the question that all of us are always confronted with, whether it's getting irritated in the queue at Sainsbury's or so many other little things in life. Do you think, oh, solid, do you feel that, or do you think I need to work with this? That I think is a key decision in human life. Yeah. The difficulty is things like passivity. You can not even notice that you are, so you don't realise there's something to notice, something to work with. So the first thing to do with the hindrances is take full responsibility for them. They are yours. You're not in meditation, in any Buddhist sense of life. You're not interested in blame. You're not interested in blaming yourself either, but I'll come to that in a minute. You're just saying to yourself, okay, here's my state of mind. How am I going to work with it? Here's me feeling anxious. Now, when I'm very busy at the moment, and I can tell in my mind, I can think of all these good reasons why I should be anxious. But that's not Buddhism. Yeah, that's just another kind of blame. So you just think, okay, so I'm a bit anxious now. How can I work with that? Yeah. So that's the first thing to say about the hindrances, is to take full responsibility for them. They are yours. They're your states of mind, and if you own them, you can change them. But if you think they belong to the state, or they belong to your partner, or they're caused by your boss, you make yourself passive to them, and then you can't change them, of course, because they don't belong to you. You think, well, once my boss, da-da-da, once the state, da-da-da, once they reverse Brexit, da-da-da, etc., etc. Yeah. It's very tempting to get all that, but it's utterly fruitless. Utterly fruitless. The second thing we need to do with the hindrances is not take them personally. I rather like this. It's starting to seem almost koan-like. We need to take responsibility for them and own them, but not take them personally. By which I mean not take them personally, not identify with them as saying something fundamental about you. So if you've done something dreadful, you don't think I'm a terrible person. You just take responsibility. Here's the consequences of what I've done. I need to change. But you're not trying to take them personally. The hindrances, actually, from a Buddhist point of view, are very superficial about human beings. They just don't say much about us. So if we take them personally, we take them almost as metaphysical statements, that I'm a good person or a bad person or an anxious person or a depressed person or whatever, an irritable person. That's not helpful. That's not owning it, that's identifying with it. So the second thing to say about the hindrances is practice not taking them personally, which means being really willing to feel them, be interested in them, even fascinated by them, without thinking that they're somehow saying something, some final thing about you. Yeah? Gosh, here I am with all this anxiety, here I am with this ill will, here I am with this lust, here I am with this nothing very much feeling and I'm really bored. We're trying to just feel those things, acknowledge them, but not take them personally. They're like winds, the five Nirvanas, they're like winds that blow through humanity. We're like ghosts who are possessed by them. Yeah? So we need to completely own them and yet not take them personally. Yeah? I've never put those two together, but I think that's much more helpful to think of those two things together. Yeah. And then the third thing we need to do with the hindrances is not get caught up in the perspective of the hindrance. That's really the issue, is that it's not that we're experiencing anxiety. Actually, anxiety has got lots of energy in it. It's not that we're experiencing ill will. Ill will's got lots of energy in it. It's being taken into that perspective so that we become ill will or we become anxiety, or that all we're doing is focusing on the thing that our mind is attached to. Yeah. So we try not to get caught up in the perspective of the hindrance. Yeah. So the first way we do all that is keep on stepping out of propuncture, like I said yesterday, into direct experience of your body. It's taking an interest in how you're feeling. So what we're going to do today, I'm just going to lead us. We're supposed to be doing the Maitreyabandhu, but we won't go to do that today. Well, I don't fancy it. I'm leading, I'm allowed to do that. So we'll just do the first and the third stage of the mindfulness of breathing. And what I'd like us to do is really try to notice that moment when your mind goes off. Really see if you can tell, if you subtly get annoyed with that. Yeah? If you subtly have a judgment about that. Before you know it, you're gradually gathering a judgment that says, I can't do this thing called meditation. Yeah? So really notice that moment when you notice that you've gone off. See if you can tell, it's quite difficult to tell, if you've got a subtle value judgment about that. Yeah? And then use it, as I said yesterday, as a cue to relax. When you get distracted, all it means is you need to relax a bit more. Yeah? You don't need to make any more of it than that. But what I'd like to do today is try to pause for a moment before you go back to the breath, and without being too kind of analytical about it, because that's not helpful, see if you can get a sense of what hindrance is that an expression of. Am I thinking that stuff because I'm anxious, or because I'm a bit grabby and wanting something, I'm wanting pleasure? Or is it because I'm sleeping? Or, try to start to get a sense of these 5 nirvanavas: wanting something, not wanting something, anxiety, sloth, and torpor, and doubt. Start to feel and know them. Yeah? And even bring your attention into them, that feeling in your body of anxiety or ill will or whatever it is, or excitability. Yeah? Try to feel into them and try to then bring the breath into them. Yeah? So instead of thinking, this is something in my way, hindrance, I need to get rid of it, and then I'll go back to this thing called meditation, you notice the hindrance arise. Even sometimes I sort of cheat and you just play the hindrance a bit longer, and then notice how it feels in your body. Feel into that feeling in your body. Even if it's a thought, they've all got reflections into your body. Thoughts are like stars, they reflect into the pool of your body. Feel them in the body, and then see if you can own them. Go up to them and feel what they're like, and breathe with them. So you're not trying. So you don't have this idea, I need to get rid of them. You've actually got more of this notion that you need to feel what the hindrance is, get right up close to it, and breathe into it in your body. Yeah? And then tomorrow, I'll then say a bit more of how you move on from there. So we've done propuncture yesterday, the 5 so-called hindrances today, and then tomorrow we'll go a bit further. Okay? So let's set ourselves up for meditation.